Hey guys, it's KJ from the scariest movie ever. And when you begin to see these signs, you know that the world is about to change in a really big way. I wanted to start off with this news story that recently came out. Bank of England must plan for financial crisis sparked by aliens. It's a big story, and it's in the Times. This is a big newspaper, or a big news source, mainstream news source. Bank of England must plan for financial crisis sparked by aliens. When you see these signs, you know it's about to go down. I've been tracking the alien disclosure story and situation for years, but not through the worldly eyes. I believe this is it's definitely going to happen. They've been programming and preparing the public for many years. I've been showing you for a good decade myself, and others have been showing you also, but this is a setup, and humanity has been primed and perfectly programmed for just such a thing. And now we find this story right here, so let's check some of this out. The Bank of England must plan for a financial crisis being triggered by an official announcement confirming the existence of alien life, one of its former policy experts has claimed. Helen McCaw served as a senior analyst in financial security at the UK's central bank, preparing for events that could impact the economy. She's now written to Andrew Bailey, the bank's governor, urging him to organize contingencies for the possibility that the White House may one day confirm we are not alone in the universe. And as you know, get Senate, Congress, UFO hearings. It's a big deal. And we're seeing more of this now just over the last couple of years. McCaw, a Cambridge graduate, believes a declaration of that magnitude would send shockwaves through the markets and could trigger bank collapses and civil unrest. Until recently, suggestions that governments were covering up the existence of alien life were limited to a small coterie of conspiracy theorists and UFO activists. However, a host of senior American officials, including the Secretary of State Marco Rubio, New York Senator Kristen Gillibrand, and James Clapper, a former director of national intelligence, have recently indicated their belief in the possibility of intelligent non-human life. Rubio, a close ally of President Trump, told the makers of the recently released UFO documentary, The Age of Disclosure, we've had repeated instances of something operating in the airspace over restricted nuclear facilities, and it's not ours. Just this month, the Sunday Times disclosed previously classified state files which showed that the British military sought to obtain extraterrestrial technology after receiving credible intelligence that UFOs appeared to be real and could outperform any known human craft. Back to McCaw, who worked for the Bank of England for 10 years until 2012, insists that politicians and bankers can no longer afford to dismiss talk of alien life and joke about little green men. The United States government appears to be partway through a multi-year process to declassify and disclose information on the existence of a technologically advanced non-human intelligence responsible for UFOs, she claimed. If the UFO proves to be of non-human origin, we may have to acknowledge the existence of power or intelligence greater than any government and with potentially unknown intentions. It's entirely possible that government leadership and their central banks have not been properly briefed on the topic. UFO disclosure is likely to induce ontological shock and provoke psychological responses with material consequences. And here's just a few more UFO headlines that have popped up just over the last week I wanted to share with you. UFO task force eyed as lawmaker warns of strange objects in skies and waters defying known technology. Proposed task force would work with federal partners to assess airspace safety risks and investigate UFO reports. UFO panic hits Vermont as lawmakers push for state UAP or UFO task force after years of sightings. Unidentified aerial phenomena prompt Vermont to propose a new state task force for airspace safety and transparency. U.S. intelligence officials reportedly preparing to release authentic UFO evidence in 2026. Whistleblowers and legislative mandates may force historic disclosure. Top scientist Jacques Vallée says UFO databases logged 260,000 sightings and non-human creatures. The veteran researcher claims government-linked databases include hundreds of cases involving entities linked to crashed craft. Anytime that I start talking about UFOs and disclosure, I always have to go back to this image, and in particular this movie. It was called Childhood's End. And before it was a movie, it was a novel. I can't remember if it was Robert Heinlein or Arthur C. Clarke. I'm not really sure who wrote it off the top of my head. But I know it was very popular at one point to where they finally made it into a movie just over 10 years ago, around 10 years ago. And this image right here will always stand out because at first you're not really sure who the aliens are, but once they reveal themselves, you can see right here, it's clearly an image of what we consider a demon, right, from the Bible, something demonic and evil, something devilish, because that's the truth. You know, the enemy, the devil, is behind this so-called disclosure and these UFOs and aliens and creatures from other galaxies and all this. It's all nonsense. We're dealing with principalities and wicked creatures and shapeshifters and demons and fallen ones. And it's all a grand deception, and it's setting humanity up. And that's really what this novel, this movie was all about as well. I believe it's going to play out a little bit differently in the world, of course, than it did here in the movie. But I appreciate that it's out there and that they drew this connection to the demonic and these so-called UFOs and aliens. And actually here, I want you to check this clip out. It's a nice, short little kind of rundown of Childhood's End and kind of how it all played out. So check this out.
Humanity's first encounter with aliens. Everyone was excited. Not only did they offer free alien technology, but they also cured all of humanity's diseases. To humans, they seemed like gods. But when humans finally saw what the aliens looked like, everyone was in disbelief. Their appearance was just too terrifying, resembling the demons from legends. But because their arrival had turned Earth into a paradise, people eventually accepted this alien overlord. However, soon after, scientist Mark noticed something strange. After the overlord's arrival, Earth's technology had come to a complete standstill. There were no new inventions or breakthroughs. He quickly reported his discovery to the government officials, but they didn't take it seriously, because with the overlord's alien technology, humans no longer needed to invent anything. Then, they revealed to Mark that the Overlord wanted help capturing a sample of every species on Earth. Mark quickly asked why, but the officials said they didn't know either. Determined to find out what was going on, Mark started researching and reading various books. Finally, he made a shocking discovery. The Overlord had visited Earth before. That's why their image appeared in ancient texts. And the reason they were seen as demons by our ancestors was most likely because of terrible things they'd done to Earth. At that moment, Mark's girlfriend told him that the Overlord was hosting a banquet the next day, and all the world leaders would be attending. She'd been invited too. Mark insisted she take him along. At the banquet, Mark confronted the Overlord, asking why they were blocking human technological progress and secretly taking the animals. To his surprise, the Overlord replied, saying everything he did was for humanity's benefit. He had blocked technology to keep humans away from dangerous powers that could destroy them, and he had already solved all of Earth's problems. Humans just needed to enjoy life. As for the animals, he was taking them back to his home planet for an exhibition. The people in the room were half skeptical. To prove his point, the Overlord asked for a pregnant woman, offering to perform a gene check on her fetus to ensure the child would be healthy. He had her place her hand on a circular device, and in an instant, a white beam of light shot up into the sky. Everyone was stunned by the sight, but Mark noticed something strange in the beam. It contained a certain symbol. He quickly recorded it. Later, he realized the symbol represented a set of coordinates. This meant the Overlord's claim about checking the fetus was a lie. He then discovered that these coordinates pointed directly to the Overlord's home planet. So Mark started keeping an eye on all the pregnant women who had been exposed to the light. To his horror, he discovered that the children born to these women had developed extraordinary powers.
I found a very interesting trend that's starting to develop in relation to all these stories about the UFOs and aliens and disclosure. It's very strange. It kind of comes on the heels of the story that came out just within the last couple years of so-called demon face syndrome. And if you follow the channel, you know that whenever I find examples, I share them of people actually shifting in public. I know, it's crazy stuff, but they look like people. And this goes back to the Bible. There's something else amongst us. There are monsters amongst us for sure. But But following that line of thinking, this new trend, it has to do with people creating these AI videos of themselves, ripping their skin off, and then revealing that they're actually aliens or creatures, right? And I did a video pretty recently about the new movie coming out from Steven Spielberg, Disclosure Day. Even in that one, in the trailer, it shows shifting and it shows possession. It shows humans being taken over by the so-called aliens, right? So I'm wondering if this movie is going to set up the idea that the shifters amongst us that are going to be revealed more and more and have been revealed more and more are actually aliens. Hey guys, no, they're covert spies. You know, they've been here all along, blending in with humanity. So it's all good. It's all part of the plan. You know, I'm not sure if that's what narrative they're going to end up pushing, but it certainly seems that those pieces are in place to where they could do that. But keeping all that in mind, again, you see what's happening here. All these people are making these videos, AI videos of them ripping their skin off and then revealing that indeed they are aliens amongst us. We see these videos of elements of humanity creating these videos to where they're creatures, they're monsters, right? And that made me think of something that, you know, I follow symbols a lot. I find the symbols all throughout media, but you know, what about the times we find symbols other places outside of that? You know, does it still mean the same thing? I think it does. Because ultimately, in the beast system, with the language of symbols, it's an absolute, true and real language that not everybody sees or understands. But I found something interesting when it comes to symbols and what's happening within humanity, right? So let me share this with you. Most of you know what an obelisk is. Like the Washington Monument is an example. And there's obelisks all around the world. Typically, it's a tall, slender, four-sided stone monument that tapers upward and terminates in a pyramid-shaped top called a pyramidion. Originally constructed by the ancient Egyptians, obelisks were carved from a single piece of stone, typically red granite from quarries in Aswan. Here's the part I want you to pay attention to. They were often erected in pairs at the entrances of temples, and they symbolized the sun god Ra, representing rays of sunlight frozen in stone. The obelisk, the monument, this also goes back to Osiris's penis, which is a whole other story altogether. But sometimes people miss the fact that these are connected to the sun god Ra, which is Satan, which is the devil, which is the master of this flesh kingdom, unfortunately, that we're all in. This is his beast system. So these obelisks represent the sun god Ra. And now we have this really bizarre story here. Scientists discover new forms of life inside human bodies that don't match anything biology has ever classified. What could this be? Take a look right here. A newly identified class of RNA molecules has been discovered in bacteria living inside the human body. These circular genetic structures, termed obelisks, differ from known viruses, bacteria, etc., etc. Not so concerned about all that. It is interesting that RNA is connected to this in altering DNA and all, but the term the obelisks. So they're finding obelisks inside the human body. I just thought this story was interesting. Once again, I find through symbolism Satan's fingerprints all through media, but we can also find it, in this case, in the human body. Obelisks. I think that's really interesting. Things are changing, man. These are crazy times, as you know. So going back to the idea that some people in humanity are changing, that stranger things are coming in, that some people in humanity don't seem quite human, if you will. We recently had an example of this. The World Economic Forum had their annual meeting recently, and of course that's where we find a lot of the globalists all there meeting up and talking about their 2030 agenda, which is on the way, just a few years away at this point. And we see that manifesting and developing all around the world, even elements of it coming into America. So, this is that final system that's being created through these people, and we see it developing. So, but during this meeting, a lot of people had noticed that Emmanuel Macron, something was off with him. Something was weird with his eyes. He had a A darkened eye, which we see quite a bit. It reminded me of some of the other darkened-eyed globalists, if you will, that we've seen. We've seen some of these before. Remember Queen Elizabeth, of course. We've seen her on a few occasions with this mysterious darkened eye, right? And you can even look over to Mr. Biden. You see Mr. Biden has got the darkened eye right here as well. But, I'll tell you what, here's a clip that was really hard to find. I've been doing this so many years, and there's some clips that I always remember, and I'll go back to when I need to find them and bring them back up. And this is one of those clips I'm about to show you here. But this used to be really easy to find. I used to be able to find multiple examples of this, but now this clip right here I'm going to show you is the only one I was able to find, and that's within an hour of research. But check this out, because this happened during Obama's administration. A lot of people noticed it at the time, man. It was a big talk. People were asking why Joe Biden's eyes were completely black, as you can see right here. So he had blackened, full-on blackened eyes. It's a look of possession, if you ask me, but full-on blackened eyes. So we had Biden there, and of course, back to Macron. I guess once he realized, it was so obvious and people were talking about it, he put on the sunglasses, put on the shades to hide the eye. A lot of people have theories and ideas on what this is. We, as you know, if you've been following me for a while, or if you're just in this kind of community in general, you know about the Blackened Eye Club, right? Many politicians and entertainers and even people in sports, on the high end, a lot of these people end up having blackened eyes. And if you think about it in your own life, it's not something that's very common. I mean, I think the last time I had a blackened eye was when I was a child, and I don't remember any time recently in years with my adult friends, any of them having darkened eyes. It just doesn't happen. However, we find it time and time again with these big celebrities, politicians, religious leaders even. It's the blackened eye. I've always seen it as an example of these people being in the club. No matter how that eye got darkened, it's also interesting. It's one darkened eye, right? It's an all-seeing eye. So kind of a symbol of them being a part of the club is the way I've seen it overall. Perhaps it is, the darkness of it all. Perhaps that is a sign of some kind of a spiritual manifestation, a possession taking place or something. And also I wanted to show you this man right here. This is Peter Brabeck. You see Peter Brabeck. Klaus Schwab from the WEF stood down over the last year or so, and in his place they put in Chairman Brabeck, right, to be the chairman of the board for however long. But what's interesting is, now this is what he normally looks like, but what's interesting is this is what he looked like when they made the announcement. And as you can see, he also had, the darkened eye, right? So interesting. Again, the all-seeing eye, right? Some kind of a symbol of a spiritual possession, no matter what it might be. But interesting, we have this guy that's really, I guess on the surface, kind of at the top of this globalist organization that really is pushing for that final system, that final beast system. But we find him with the darkened eye as well. As I said, there's different theories on this, different ideas. But one thing people go back to time and time again is the idea of the vril, the VRIL. I've been doing this stuff for many years. I've never found solid information on the vril. I've been looking for it forever. It's hard to find anything really solid on that. But a lot of people have heard about it throughout the years through different whistleblowers, people who say they were involved in this on some level, and then they come out and they talk about it. And one of those people is named Donald Marshall. And, I just say discern everything. I'm not sure what to totally believe with Donald Marshall on this, but he has an idea of the vril, what these things are, and how they're used. So just keeping that in mind, again, discern for yourselves, but I think it is interesting. So let's check this out.
These lizards have a unique biological property of their bodies. The lizards have what's called a proboscis. It's an ejectable brain and spinal column. The small ones they use to drone people, because the proboscis on young lizard type 1s, they're small enough to go into an eye and not ruin the eye, because they're supposed to do this to animals with bigger eyeballs, probably friggin' dinosaurs. They parasite a human's brain. This top cap thing on the top of their head comes out. They can do this once in their life. It pulls their spinal column along with it. The human would have to be restrained or unconscious. The thing squiggles in through the eye. It does a spiral around the optic nerve all the way to a certain point, and it's driven there by taste. And they said once it gets there, it has the taste of butterscotch. It then starts what they call sweating the quilt. The spinal cord stuff comes out of the spinal cord, and it's everything that the lizard is. The lizard's whole body is dead, and it can't go back in. It's one way. The juice that's in the spinal cord gets excreted out of the tip of this thing. They're parasitic cells. The parasitic cells go into the brain. The old person's consciousness is gone. The body is absolutely, totally dominated, and the lizard is smarter as a human. Over time, it'll develop a rash, it'll lose its hair. And they're actually deficient. They're dumber than the original person. And they mimic human behavior. And it knows that its life is dependent on it mimicking human behavior, so it does really well. Even with other animals, it's smart enough to instinctually mimic the animal's behavior. The drones of 100 years ago erased any existence of these real lizards from Egyptian carvings on walls. They would smash them. Or books that had anything in them about them, they would burn them.
There's another symbol that I find all through media and have been for many years. It's one of the symbols of the beast system, if you will. Fingerprints of the devil, but the 8-pointed star, all right? It's the 8-pointed star. And no matter what you've heard that it means here in this world, no matter what symbol it is, always go back to the beginning with everything. Always go back to the original intention, of everything. And when it comes to this 8-pointed star, initially it's the star of Lucifer, okay? It's also considered the star of Ishtar. But no matter what, it's another one of those satanic symbols, and it goes back to the beast system. And as you can see here, just some of the examples, it really does show up in just everything. All kinds of movies, TV shows, corporate logos, the whole thing. You'll find this 8-pointed star over and over and over again. Within the last week, they had the awards ceremony called the Golden Globes. And as you know, many of these awards ceremonies are dying out. No one's paying attention as much anymore, and Hollywood is in its death throes. It's sinking and sinking quickly, and I'm here for it. I'd much rather see them, allowing different states to have some kind of amount of money for film production and just let it go there and not have it all come out of Babylon Hollywood. But Hollywood is dying and sinking, as you know. Either way, I did tune into the Golden Globes, and I noticed the 8-pointed star. So over and over again, you'll find at the center of the stage was the 8-pointed star, and this is where they had all of the people stand on the 8-pointed star. Also, when some of the people received their awards, you would find them standing in front of an 8-pointed star, as you see right here in a few of these cases, standing in front of the 8-pointed star. So it's there predominantly at the Golden Globes, right, in Babylon, Hollywood. I even found it in another interesting place right here. You may have heard about this. There were some shamans on a beach that recently got together, and they were doing a ritual. Has to do with 2026. Had something to do with Maduro and Trump and all that. But if you're looking right here, you can see right here that one of the shamans is actually wearing the 8-pointed star right there on his hat, right? So you get the 8-pointed star there as well. So just another one of those symbols that keeps popping up, right, in these times.
I don't know about you, but I'm actually really happy Elon Musk is finally talking about this, but there is so much more to this story. Put the Minnesota flag back, he says. But Americans need to pay attention to this. The flag features an 8-point star, a symbol prominent in Islam, and we're seeing it show up in flags all across the nation. The original Minnesota flag was replaced with a flag that resembles the flag of Somalia, a flat blue design with that 8-point star. Now, this is the same flag that Jackie Toberoff and I have been reporting on for almost 2 years now. Minnesota's original flag, there was nothing wrong with it, reflected the history of the land, a Native American on horseback, and a farmer. Now, this, of course, comes on the heels of Minnesota's massive fraud scandal, so now people are starting to pay attention to this flag, which is great. But Americans need to understand, again, this isn't just happening in Minnesota. Take a look at Reno, Nevada, before and after. Take notice, 8-point star. Look at Kent, Ohio, before and after. Now look at the city of Hutchinson in Kansas. They've actually scrubbed much of the internet of what the previous flag looked like, but it resembles their city seal. They said it was too basic. Now, Jacqueline Toberoff wrote an entire article in 2024 with all the links of the changes and then proposed flags as well. You can check it out. So what are the chances they all just happen to have this same 8-point star?
So when you see these signs, when you see these symbols, we know that the end is near, that destruction comes. So what's most important to remember, no matter what I've done through the years, any videos or shows or whatever, man, it's that you know Jesus Christ. That's number one. That's what matters most. The most important decision you'll ever make, and you need to make it. Be involved. A lot of people aren't even paying attention. That's why I do what I do all these years, trying to warn you, show you what time it is and what's coming. And we may not have all the answers. None of us do. We're all different pieces. We see through a glass darkly, right? So all of us brothers and sisters come together with our pieces of the puzzle, and we try to make a clearer picture. But again, most important, please, if you haven't accepted that free gift of salvation, please choose Jesus. Most important decision you'll make, it's not becoming religious or being in religion, it's a relationship with your Creator, and the Creator of all things, and the Creator that knew you before you were born. So He wants you to return. He wants to be with you forever, but you have free will. You get to choose. So please choose wisely, my friend. It is that time. All right, so as always, I hope my videos are a blessing to you or some kind of encouragement or enlightenment, and I always appreciate you watching them. So thank you so very much, guys, and I hope you're doing well out there. Hang in there. Take care. Crazy times. No fear in Christ, though, right? We're good. Okay. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.